Hey, this is Goldhand Drawings. Today I'll be talking some basic information on watercolor paints. If you know the characteristics about watercolor paints, then you'll know your priority elements depending on your work style. Then you'll have a better chance on finding the brand that suits you the most. So let's talk about some watercolor paints. Okay, so we need to know what type of paints we have in the market. There are two types, solid and liquid. Solid is a paint that is inside half or full pan like this. And there are two ways of making solid paints. One is cutting a solid paint sticks into a pan, and the other one is drying a liquid paint into a pan, which is no different from liquid type. So if you buy a liquid tube and dry it into a pan, then you can make your own color palette. Now, pigment is the most important subject in paint. Pigment is a substance that makes the color, and the pigment is in powder form. We can tell paint company has an advanced technology or not by how fine their powder is. One of the best company that I think of is Schmincke. Most of the company writes their pigment specs on their tube. The one that doesn't have the specs on their tube, I guess we have to look it up on their websites or brochure. I personally recommend the brand that has some specs written on their tubes. After all, we're paying big money on paint, and I think they should have at least a little bit of specs written on their tube. Now, if you see the spec, the pigment name is written. If there's only one pigment name written, then it's a singular pigment. If there's two or more, then it is a mixed pigment. Most artists prefer paint with singular than mixed, because singular means higher purity, and higher the purity, higher the color vibrancy. I cannot say 100% that mixed pigments have a higher chance of getting muddy color. I'm not saying always, but there's a chance. And nobody wants muddy color on their artwork. Not always, but most of the pigment is written like this. P stands for pigment, and second alphabet stands for color. Earlier I said not always, because some paint starts with N or B. Light fastness is color fading when exposed to sunlight. Every brand shows their light fastness in 3 to 5 stages. So like schmincke, more stars means better resistance to fading when exposed to sunlight. Schmincke is a really good company. They have tons of singular pigment paints, and they're really easy to re-wet, but they're really expensive. On student grade, I think Winsor Newton Cotman is the best. I'm currently using it and I'm very satisfied with it. Given the price, their color vibrancy is really good. I guess I should say pigment name for this subject. First, if you see this tube, the name is hooker screen, and the color is made with PB153, PG7, and PY42. Now, other company also have this hooker screen, but the pigment they use is different. For example, Daniel Smith used PG36, PY3, PO48, and PY150. Amgram used PG7, PY110. So there's a big chance these three brands will have different color of hooker screen, meaning there's no international rule that hooker screen must use certain pigment. Meaning every brand can name their colors whatever they want. But gladly, pigments names are set. If the pigment number is same, there's a high chance the color will be same. I would say 90% it will be same, since every company's manufacturing process is slightly different and a lot of factors influence the colors, such as binder, percentage, or even temperature. Like this quinacridone gold hue, this hue is the best example of pigment alteration. Some pigments are very expensive or harmful to environment, so they They replaced it to a cheaper or unharmful pigment. So this hue is actually a good thing because the company made it affordable to buyers and unharmful to environment. But the problem with this hue is that I don't think the color is same. The color result is slightly different, so I think they should come up with new name instead of using hue at the back. So on watercolor, transparent means undercolor is shown when we do the layering, or we can see the paper texture over the paint. In watercolor, we control the vibrancy with water, and most companies show 3 to 4 stages. Opaque means we cannot see the undercolor, so those colors good for covering up. Staining is when we paint on paper. Paper absorbs the water and also the pigment, so before it dries, we can always wipe it off if we made a mistake. But some pigment stains and will leave the marks on paper after we wipe it. Granulation is something like this. We can see some area showing grains, I would say. This kind of concentrated circles. This is called granulation. Some colors have these granulations, most of the colors don't. I personally like this granulation since I draw architecture structures. It kinda adds a texture to a wall or a road. Some artists hate this granulation, so I guess this is really a preference. If you think this granulation is cool, you can always buy this Winsor & Newton granulation medium. Just add 1 or 2 drops and the effect will show right away. If I say it in easy way, pigments plus gum arabic equals watercolor paint. This gum arabic is a binder. If we add acrylic resin instead of gum arabic, then it will be acrylic paint. In watercolor, there are lots of binders, but these two are the most used binders, gum arabic and honey. Sennelier and Amgram is the company that use honey as a binder. This honey, they work really well with water, and the gradation is prettier than gum arabic used paint. Vibrancy is crazy good. They don't dry completely, I think, so we can always reuse the paint from palette, and the paint doesn't crack after time passes. But they have this weird smell when we use it. I personally don't like this honey mixed pigments. I guess you just have to use it and see if you like it or not. So this is it. All you need to know about watercolor paint beginner's guide. I hope my video was helpful to people who are thinking of buying some watercolor paints, and I'll try to come back with more informative or interesting stuff in the next video. Thanks for watching, and bye bye.